Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week, and this is going to be the astro weather for the week of October 6th through the 13th, 2024. I hope you guys are well. Happy Sunday to all my Sunday crew. We are going to be taking a look at the week ahead and what's kind of coming up with the transits. And probably one of the main areas of focus that I'm going to be talking about, the transit of the week, will be Mercury's ingress into the sign of Scorpio. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, and help the channel grow. You guys can also leave me a thumbs up if you like this video, or a comment and let me know what you're feeling with these energies throughout this week, and consider sharing this video with another astrology enthusiast. Any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow, and I would greatly appreciate that. All right, well, we made it through eclipse season. How's everybody doing? I know it's been a bit of a doozy. And you know, generally after the eclipses, things kind of calm down a little bit. But guys, the energy of October is going to keep on rolling. Like I've said in previous videos, October's astrology, especially mid-October, gets a little spicy. So you guys are going to start to kind of feel that energy. Just to make it very simple, we have got a number of planets that are going through the sign of Libra. So the Sun and Mercury there are still putting an emphasis on relationships, diplomacy, partnerships, supporting other people, you know, giving and receiving support. And we're still vibing off of that solar eclipse that we just had. So this was a South Node eclipse. So we're realizing and recognizing what is and is not working in relationships, where we have some room to grow, to learn how to ask for help, and also to reflect on the past if we need to reconnect or rekindle in some way. Now, you're going to see planets this week and next week in the sign of Libra start coming into a square with Mars. So this means that there's going to be ego issues. We're going to feel rushed in some sense. It can mean that there are people rushing in to help us, support us, save us, right? Especially Mars and Cancer can be about home or domestic or emotional matters. But there can also be some sense of conflict, force, being rushed in some way. So that's kind of in the skies. Simultaneously, then we are going to see other planets, Mercury and the Sun, start coming into a square with Pluto, and that's going to be really the latter part of the week. You're going to see that kind of leading into the third week of October. And Pluto is going direct this week. So Pluto is going to wake up. Squares are the energy of Mars, where we see two opposing energies in forces kind of meet at a hard angle. So it pushes us to move. So Mars squares are about conflict, maybe feeling rushed or agitated, versus Pluto squares, which are going to materialize as power struggles, standoffs, conflict, and overcoming fear or corruption. So this is a month where we got to be brave. As I've told you guys many times, that October we're going to get a lot further working together than having conflict and having strife. And at least as we have planets going through the sign of Libra, it's in a superior position. So this is where two, right, or a partnership or a team can actually overcome some of the challenges with Pluto. So we do have the capabilities of being able to work together. Equally, this week, you're going to see some nice aspects to Jupiter. So things are going to open up a little bit. We're going to see some room for positivity, better communication, travel, and collaboration. Although Jupiter will be turning retrograde in Gemini. So for all of my Jupiter ruled charts, my Sagittarius, my Pisces, as well as Gemini risings, be mindful that Jupiter turning retrograde is going to kind of feel like something's shifting. You're returning to something, you're reflecting maybe on your beliefs, maybe on just yourself in general and where you've been growing and kind of evolving. And while Jupiter turns retrograde, like I said, Pluto turns direct. And this is going to be a very interesting next month, because it will be about a month of having Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. This is the last final throes of some of these power struggle issues with top-down kind of government related things, leadership, big business, right? Authority figures. And yeah, I feel like with this incoming Mars opposition at the end of the month, it's it's going to pull out all the stops. So be mindful of some of that energy in the air. I don't typically talk too much about the quarter squares. You know, you guys know when you watch me go through the week ahead for the astro weather, I tell you where the moon is every single day and kind of what we're vibing off of based off of where that, you know, what aspects the moon is making and what sign it's in. But I want everybody to pay attention to this first quarter moon square, because this is going to be a very big square, because this is the first lunar square since we had the solar eclipse in Libra, and this is going to be like the last time that we're going to see the moon cross Pluto in Capricorn. So the square is the kind of opening point after the solar eclipse, where we're being kind of challenged and pushed to kind of start moving forward with some of our intentions and, you know, seeing some growth from the solar eclipse. So we'll see this as kind of like a speed bump or a stop sign, but I feel like it is the setup for some of the really intense cardinal squares that we're going to be seeing later in the week and also into the month of October. And then finally, Mercury enters into the sign of Scorpio. Mercury will be moving into the fixed water sign at the end of the week on the 13th of October. And Mercury will stay in Scorpio until about the 2nd of November. So if you happen to be a Mercury ruled chart, if you're a Gemini or a Virgo rising, your planetary ruler is on the move. Equally Scorpio placements, sun, moon, rising, or if you have a natal Mercury in Scorpio, you'll be having your Mercury return pretty soon. And this is going to be an interesting time because, as you guys know, when planets are going through Scorpio, we see trines to Saturn in Pisces, which provides stability. We're going to see also some trines to Mars right at the tail end of the Mars and Cancer transit, where we can be feeling very motivated, incentivized to do something. Trines to Neptune, which can make us a little bit more tapped in. Sextiles to Pluto, which can be very powerful. And then obviously we'll see a Mercury opposition to Uranus. So Venus is actually going to go through that opposition first. So it'll be interesting to see how Venus opposed Uranus plays out here in October before we see Mercury come into the opposition. I will put those dates below so that way you guys know some of the major kind of transits and the trek that Mercury is going to go through. But essentially, we're now leaving Mercury in Libra this week, where it's been such a hot topic with like the solar eclipse and the cazimi. There's been lots of information revolving around relationships and partnerships. It's been in a cardinal air sign, so it's been more social. It's been more kind of action-packed. When Mercury goes into the sign of Scorpio, which is traditionally associated with Mars and Pluto, certainly communication can get a little bit more spicy. It can be a little bit more intense. But also I think that this is about really looking at the planet of communication and thought and intellect through the lens of Scorpio. So it's going to be intense. It's going to be deep. There's a lot of emotions associated with Scorpio all over the spectrum, obviously. And we know that Scorpio is a transformative energy. So we're changing and transforming our mind, how we move, how we connect, how we communicate. So the themes associated with this transit just generally is going to be about depth and intensity, right? Anybody who's got a natal Mercury in Scorpio, or maybe you have Mercury in the 8th house or a Mercury-Pluto aspect, you know that these are placements that are not superficial, right? They like to go deep. This is the placement of somebody who is possibly into like occult, metaphysics, related things, or psychology, right? Research. Anything revolving around kind of uncovering information or data and like trying to make sense of what makes people tick. So it does not like superficial communication. It is seeking the truth. Often Mercury in Scorpio is also about kind of diving into secrets or things that are kind of beneath the surface that cannot be easily found. So conversations during this transit have a tendency to be a little bit more profound and obviously focusing on transformation, but also power dynamics can come up and the essence of issues rather than what's just seen on the surface. So we got to look a little bit further, a little bit deeper to kind of read between the lines and see what's going on. I love that this transit, gives all of us an opportunity to have a little bit more of like an investigative nature. I have natal Mercury in Scorpio. It's conjunct my sun and Pluto. So that's why I feel like a lot of my content has like a lot of depth to it. And there's like a lot of me really putting thought into assessing and analyzing what's going on with the skies and how it's kind of reflecting in our own kind of subconscious. So you have the capability when we have these transits to tap into that energy. So that means that you may have more of a curiosity revolving around what lies beneath, right? And as we go through this transit, it's excellent for detective work, for research, anything that's about uncovering hidden truths, data, any information that has kind of been hidden. So I would imagine that throughout the Mercury transit, the internet is definitely going to see its fair share of people digging up some interesting information, especially with like trines to Saturn. It's going to be about things that has been hidden or restricted or kind of blocked. This could be photos or videos. And with the trines to Mars, obviously it can also be revolving around damage and things connecting to homes or security or like military operations. And when we see the oppositions to Uranus, it could be rather shocking financial news. So lots of interaction with other planets throughout this transit. Obviously, Scorpio is a sign that deals with death. Okay, so we can hear more about death counts in certain areas that have been affected by storms. I'm looking at like trines to, obviously Saturn and Pisces is about kind of coastal cities. Trines to Mars can also be about destruction revolving around home and property. So we can get some really shocking information revolving around just the sheer capacity of how badly certain areas are being impacted by storms or being impacted by immigration matters, or we're going to hear some new crime numbers and statistics and things revolving around that are likely going to be coming out with this transit as well. Now, Scorpio also touches on things that are like connected to the mob, right? Crime, things revolving around also uncovering financial information. So there can be all kinds of data and numbers and things that are coming out revolving around like debt and money owed and money that's being spent. So obviously that kind of plays on some of like the investigative kind of qualities of this transit. But Scorpio is also about emotional intelligence. So there can be this sense while we go through this transit where our emotional insights are peaking. And I like that, at least as planets go through Scorpio, which can be really intense for people who don't have natal placements in the sign or in the 8th house, there's some support with trines to Saturn. So like there is like a sobering mind or becoming aware of how to communicate on an emotional level a little bit more in a much more mature manner. And I think it can also be that we're recognizing and realizing where we need to have the difficult conversations, or if we don't say something, or if we don't kind of relay some kind of information, then, it can end up doing us a disservice. So I do see this as being a transit that is known for being a little bit more rational when it comes to its emotions, and also definitely intense and passionate with some of its exchanges. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is known for being secretive. That is definitely a theme because Mercury is the communicator. It does hold, the keys and the passwords and all of that information. So when it's in Scorpio, there is some reluctance to share information freely. And it can mean it's because they're more strategic in their approach to communication. It can also mean that we are using silence or being selective with sharing information because we realize and we recognize that that is connected to power, right? Power to the people who have the information. So we can be kind of really reevaluating, do I say something? How do I say it? Am I giving my power away because I'm talking about this situation, or my feelings on the matter? I do find that Mercury in Scorpio tends to be a placement that is a little bit more confrontational and unapologetic. That's just in the nature of Mars and Pluto. We can see more confrontations and not out of aggression. It's more out of like means to reach deeper truth or try to challenge the status quo. So I have found just personally that this placement is about not backing down or apologizing for intensity and kind of getting to the heart of the matter. So we might find that we're a little less diplomatic than we were when Mercury was in Libra. We're a little bit more direct. We don't really mind upsetting kind of the apple cart or kind of breaking out of the status quo. And sometimes having to relay the hard information in order to kind of get the point across. the whole process of Scorpio is meant to be transformative. So whenever we have transits with planets going through this sign, it's about changing the pattern of something. So in Mercury's case, changing the way that we think, changing the way that we communicate, something about how we are spending money or managing debt changing. And also it's about the evolution in how we perceive or discuss information. So it's under the themes of Scorpio, which is always like death, endings, like rebirth, power, and regeneration. So the best way to work with this transit over the next month or so, I think, is really just about embracing depth and recognizing that this can be a time that we can use to explore topics that require depth. So yeah, like psychology, the occult, or even subjects that probe beneath the everyday sense of awareness. And like maybe these are taboo topics and things that are uncomfortable, but asking those hard questions and kind of questioning the status quo can be really great because we can get a little bit deeper with some of our awareness. It's also about communicating with intention, especially, looking at that trine to Saturn and Mars. There can be a lot of momentum with this transit mentally in how we communicate, what we post, what we say, what we think, what we write. So your words have power now when it's in Scorpio. We want to wield them wisely, okay? So this isn't the time for casual banter, but more meaningful and impactful conversations that you're having with other people. If you feel inclined, do some investigating, right? That's something that Mercury and Scorpios were really good at. Like I always joke, I probably could have or should have been a forensic investigator or, a PI, because I could have definitely done those things. But if this is any time to do it, it's now. If there's like a topic that really interests you or something that you've always wondered about, or maybe something that's been a little too taboo or hidden, now is the time that you want to dive into it. Do your research, ask probing questions, but be prepared for truth that might come up that may radically change and transform your view. And honestly, guys, because collectively there's aspects to Mars and outer planets, you're not even gonna have to do research. There are gonna be things that are gonna come up throughout this transit where you're gonna be like, holy cow, I had no idea that was kind of going on in the background. Especially considering whenever planets go through Scorpio, we're looking at Mars and we're looking at Pluto, and right at the end of the Mercury and Scorpio transit, it's gonna trine Mars, it's gonna sextile Pluto, and they are opposing each other. And I've said this before and I'll say this again, Mars in Cancer is going to be the people, right? This is the people, and it may mean people's homes, security, the country that they live within, their families, feeling that they are like under the thumb of Pluto, who is going to be about 4-letter agencies, power struggles revolving around top-down structures, big business, government, politicians. And it's going to be about whether or not people are communicating and speaking out and telling certain truths or relaying information revolving around the true state of what's going on in the world. And I don't have a problem saying that because I have Mercury in Scorpio. See how that works? So I hope that it inspires a lot of other people throughout this transit to also start kind of peeping up and asking questions, because critical thinking is so important right now. It doesn't mean that we have to assume everything that, we hear is true, or every, little thing that pops up on the internet is real. But when you have enough people looking around going like, what's up with these synchronicities? Why is this happening? And like, why is it happening all at once? And what is it impacting? And how is it allowing there to be kind of a mismanagement of certain critical situations, and also people's security or their ability to, be able to live or, thrive or vote, right? These are some of the things that kind of come up. So freedom to move, freedom to act, freedom to live, that's very Mars in Cancer. And the opposition of Pluto in Capricorn is about people being told where they can and cannot go, what they can and cannot do, what resources they do or do not have access to, in particular their home and their personal belongings. So investigate. And even if you're not investigating, best believe you're going to be hearing some stuff that's definitely going to kind of blow your mind. I think that the Mars opposition to Pluto, it's a really good time to be reflecting on power and control. So considering that Pluto and Mars will be in positive aspect to Mercury and Scorpio, I'd be reflecting on power and control, right? Scorpio and Capricorn, these are the two signs that are the most focused on control and like managing a situation, at least in my opinion. Maybe I would say Aquarius, but they're a little bit more easygoing. So as we have planets going through these signs, I would encourage you guys to really look at things maybe in that area of your chart in Scorpio and Capricorn and consider, how are you exerting control in your communication, or how are power dynamics playing out in your relationships or in your career or in your home? And really reflect on where you might need to let go, or where you're justified in kind of standing your ground, right? Because it's going to be one kind of extreme or the other. I love the aspects to Saturn. I feel like working on emotional intelligence is a really big piece of the puzzle, enhancing your ability to read between the lines. This period can help in developing a keen sense of like what's unspoken or subtly communicated. I've been having Saturn transit, making a trine to my natal Mercury in this last year, and I'm really liking the transit. Not crazy about it being in my 6th house, but I'm really liking the transit because I feel like it provides a lot more depth and structure to the communication process and like research and like learning and all of that stuff. So I really feel like this is a wonderful opportunity to really look at, you know, how am I feeling and how can I better communicate and express what I'm saying? And are there things that I'm not saying that I should be saying? And I think that that's kind of also part of the lesson whenever you're dealing with Saturn is, you know, what's too much and like what's not enough, right? You got to feel your way into it because it's happening in water signs. I think this is also about practicing discretion, especially with Saturn and also with Mars, because like I said, this can be about enhancing your ability to read between the lines, but this period can also help develop a keen sense of like what's unspoken or what's not being communicated. And I think that that's the cool thing about Mercury in water signs, is that because they are empathic and they're sensitive and they're emotional, we don't always have to say something for us to get the point across. And equally, other people don't have to either. Sometimes you can just kind of feel into that, and like where you can't find the words, there is this sense of common ground and understanding and being able to feel what somebody else is saying just by looking at their body language, right? So we may be able to learn how to say less and understand more, or learn how to listen, or maybe be more so compassionate. Obviously engaging in transformative practices. So I think of like with Scorpio, therapy, right? Definitely therapy, trauma healing, detoxing, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the trines happening with Saturn can be about meditation, hypnosis, sleep, you know, screen management. So any activities that are going to facilitate personal growth and transformation, I think will really be beneficial and will really resonate strongly with a lot of people throughout this next month. The one thing that I would say you want to watch for is avoid overthinking and also obsessing over things. And that can happen actually, especially when we're seeing like oppositions to Uranus or sextiles to Pluto. We can get like super hyper focused on something and we can get kind of stressed out. So while depth is beneficial, you know, sometimes Mercury and Scorpio can lead to like a fixation. It's a fixed sign, or like an obsession over thoughts or conversations. And so I think it's also about practicing letting go or seeking clarity through discussion and like not holding on to something, because Scorpio placements have a tendency to kind of like want to hold on to information or thoughts or emotions. And like it can be a problem, because then eventually it gets to a point where you just kind of blow up. So in order to be able to do this, I would say like collaborate with like minds, you know, connect with individuals who might have Mercury in water signs. So Mercury, Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, these people can be helpful. Also, you know, this can just be about being aware of the days when there's going to be positive aspects, so you can kind of work with them, and be mindful of the days when there's going to be more challenging aspects. So that way you can kind of see the difference and also the pros and cons of this particular transit. But obviously, water transits bode well for the water signs and the earth signs. It's a little bit more challenging for the fire signs and for the air signs, because you guys, you know, are a completely different element. You know, at least earth is having sextiles and water is experiencing trine. So it can be deeper water and kind of like more emotional and like too much, you know, too much information for some of the air and fire signs. All right, so let's get into the week ahead. We're going to start with today, obviously, October 6th, Sunday. Happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. So we kind of touched on this a little bit last week. How are you guys feeling with Saturday and Sunday? Is it like just as kind of like steamy and like passionate, kind of sexy as I said it would be? You guys will have to let me know. You're waking up in the morning and the moon is still in Scorpio. It has, over the last 24 hours, been in conjunction to Venus and also in a trine with Mars and with Saturn. So, you know, the positive is that water trines do create more opportunities for emotional connection, healing, right? Compassion, sensitivity. And we know that Mars is about action and passion and drive, and it's a little moody in Cancer. And we've got some mutual reception here between the moon and Mars. We've got the moon in a Mars sign, we've got Mars in a moon sign, and it's trining each other. So maybe if you have water placements, you like this. This is like, you know, kind of regular, everyday astro weather for you. But for other people, it's like, man, there is some heaviness, you know, in the air right now. The moon conjunct Venus generally is a nice aspect, but, you know, this is all debilitated, guys, right? And we've got also Mars also in a sign where, you know, it does not perform well. So even though they're all trining each other, it means that there can be this free-flowing energy of taking a lot of action revolving around home and domestic things, and feeling heaviness and grief revolving around loss and change, and also, you know, realizing and recognizing what we are sacrificing, what we're giving away, what we're losing. So it doesn't always pay to have what would be considered positive aspects like trines or Venus moon conjunctions when everything is moving through signs that it does not perform well in. So there can be a heavier vibe this morning. You know, I always laugh whenever the moon's in Scorpio. I always get friends that text me and they're like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, yeah, welcome to my life as a 4th planet in Scorpio person. But I think, you know, the name of the game is change. And even in spite of some of the more difficult kind of aspects, I think about Venus trining Mars, where we learn to work together and we're appreciative of what we have, especially when we see what other people have lost or what other people are enduring or what other people are going through. I think about Venus trine Saturn, where there can be strengthening of relationships and bonds and resources and support. And it's almost like Saturn and Pisces can be like newfound faith, right? Newfound faith in humanity. It can be that there is this sense of feeling like there's like a guardian angel or something, you know, kind of like looking out for you. It's been interesting to kind of read posts on X over the last week, other than the heartbreaking images of some stuff that's been going on in the South and the devastation from the storms. Every few posts I do see some really amazing things, and I see people who are like willing to risk their lives to go into areas where they can go and rescue family members or bring food or water or medicine to strangers. We see things like people are dying, but we also see that babies are being born in the midst of this chaos. We see opportunities for people to be reunited with relatives and also with pets. Homes that are destroyed, but families are being saved, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's very Scorpio. It's just like, yep, this ended, but you know, what are we thankful for and what do we have? And in the last couple of days, I've seen a handful of posts of people being like, I did not believe in God, and now I do. And it took a situation like this for me to realize and recognize that, you know what, something was looking out for me or my family, right? Or the city that I live in. So there is this newfound faith through what can feel like something that's been a crisis. And that is Scorpio trining planets in Pisces. That's exactly what this is. So it's heavy stuff. So obviously still my heart goes out to people who are dealing with this, but I also kind of feel like it was going to take some kind of crisis to unite people. And I think that is the lesson also of Mars getting ready to go retrograde, or at least coming into shadow now, that it would take some kind of real chaotic situation to help kind of organize and bring people and community and families together to overcome some of these more kind of dramatic, life-changing things. So all day today, the moon in Scorpio is just doing its thing. You are going to see a couple of other aspects that are going to be happening as well. One is first thing in the morning, you know, Mercury is now starting to come out of a square with Mars. Anytime I see this at 17 degrees, which is a Leo degree, I always laugh. I'm like, there is going to be either, I could imagine just some some drama with like some like, you know, 2, 3, 4-year-olds kind of talking back, because Leo is about children and it is about kind of like drama and, you know, making something seem like a bigger deal than it needs to. And then you've got Mercury, which is about communication and partnership and relationships, squaring Mars in Cancer. So there's a lot of people being like, you know, don't tell me what to do. Like little kids saying that to their parents, or, you know, partners that are kind of getting into kind of squabbles and how they're communicating and like trying to keep the peace, but people are kind of getting like a little snappy, you know. Libra wants to partner, wants to encourage, wants to connect and collaborate. And Cancer does not necessarily want to change or kind of get out of its comfort zone. So there can be this sense of like partners being like, okay, get up, take a shower. Like, you know, we have stuff to do today. And people are like, I just want to lounge around. I don't want to do anything. And like the bickering, you know, that can kind of happen there. So that's in the sky. It is easing up as the day goes on. Maybe you started feeling a little bit of that last night. And this is just a reminder of what is to come. Mercury will square Mars, the sun will square Mars, Mercury will square Pluto, the sun will square Pluto, you know? And I feel like the takeaway for me so far, and we haven't even gotten into this, is just kind of like be appreciative of like who and what you do have, what support you do have. And sometimes people will do things that kind of rub you the wrong way, but they're also doing it because they're trying to get you to like show up. They're trying to get you to show up in the relationship, or maybe they don't want you to kind of like quit or give up, or they're not going to allow you to just kind of like dismiss them. They're going to be like, no, you're going to participate in this. You know, did you hear me? And while that can be annoying, I think that it's a good reminder that you have people that are kind of working with you and encouraging you. And I wouldn't take that for granted. Other than that, towards later part of the day, we also start to see the moon oppose Uranus and then trine Neptune. So once again, when that moon's in Scorpio, it's kind of moody. Let's see. So it looks like it will oppose Uranus, which can be more about shocks and surprises with money, resources, finances. That's going to take place midday. And then we are going to see it come into a trine with Neptune, and that's going to be right around mid-afternoon. And then the last aspect will be a sextile to Pluto. But we know that when, you know, Scorpio is being activated, we're looking at Pluto and we're looking at Mars, right? So it's already trine Mars, now it's sextiling Pluto, so we're adapting and we're kind of coming to terms with some of these changes. Also Mars, Moon in Scorpio, trine Neptune, this is also going to be more about issues or crisis involving water, hospitals, medication. There can also be more themes revolving around like flooding and issues pertaining to finding people or people kind of like being in distress. I mean, I do the astro weather, I don't know, but I'm kind of looking at some of the other aspects and I'm wondering like, is there supposed to be another hurricane coming? Because we're going to see some other oppositions and squares going into this next week that could be bringing some more storms. So I'm wondering if there's like preparation for that in certain areas and that we're aware of that on Sunday. All right, so then in the afternoon, the moon's going to go into Sagittarius in kind of actually the early PM hours. And when that happens, we're looking at Jupiter. Okay, so nothing's really going on with Jupiter. It's still direct. It is getting ready to retrograde. And the moon will go through Sagittarius into the evening. So it's going to keep moving. Mercury comes out of a square with Mars. We wake up on Monday the 7th. And the moon is still in Sag. Now, one thing that you're going to want to watch on Monday is that as the moon goes through Sagittarius, it's going to ricochet off of Saturn, which is why I think there's going to be some changing weather patterns on Monday and Tuesday, because the mutable signs deal with storms. And moon in Sagittarius, optimism, travel, positivity, you know, kind of cultural events, global events, things revolving around airports, transportation, colleges. So when moon squares Saturn, that tells me that there can be issues revolving around transportation and limitation of getting in and out of places or traveling, especially by air, because of storms. And moon square Saturn is also a difficult time relating, like kind of connecting to, you know, other people and being able to emotionally share. So we can experience some kind of setbacks or some delays with some of that stuff as the day kind of goes on. And you'll see the moon also very early in the morning trine the north node. And so this is talking about being adventurous, being daring, taking action, getting out there, like communicating, connecting, because the moon is connected to Jupiter in Gemini. So it's about kind of talking to community or getting news out on like media platforms, online, or through like news platforms. So the moon's going to continue to keep moving through Sag. It looks like it picks up the square in the PM hours. So more issues revolving around the communication, emotional relation, and also traveling at night. And while the moon is going through Sag, it's now coming into a sextile with the sun and Mercury. So this does kind of amplify and make it easier to communicate, connect, and like share information with other people, especially like getting the news out from places further away. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of like information from places that people have had a hard time connecting or communicating, and like suddenly communication may actually improve and get a little bit better, especially as we're starting to see Mercury come into a trine with Jupiter the very next day. All right, so then this is going to lead us into the 8th, which will be Tuesday. And in the morning, we've got the moon still in Sag, coming into an opposition with Jupiter. Okay, so this is where, you know, information, communication, traveling, news, media, things feel bigger, right? There is like an amplification that happens when we see aspects with Jupiter. So moon opposed Jupiter is big emotions, big feelings, you know, big treks, big travels, big news that's kind of coming out. And now we've got the moon sextile Mercury and coming into a trine with Chiron, okay? Equally, Mercury will trine Jupiter. So if we know that Mercury is about communication, travel, business, it can also be about negotiations and contracts in Libra, discussions with clients as well as romantic partners, and it will trine Jupiter, the great benefic. Jupiter in Gemini is also increasing communication and anything revolving around knowledge and positivity and optimism. So probably one of the better communication days all week is going to be October the 8th. If you have to make like a big announcement, if you have to send out a newsletter, if you are wanting to issue a contract to someone, if you are wanting to like launch a website or anything revolving around planning travel or anything like that, you know, if you're applying for a program, the 8th is a really good day to do that. The only thing that you want to be mindful of is that even though there's really great aspects with the moon to Mercury and Mercury to Jupiter, Mercury is going to be making an opposition to Chiron. And Chiron in Aries is where we feel wounded or we feel isolated or on our own and like by ourselves. So there can be this sense of being like, okay, like I feel insecure or I need help with something or I don't know how to, you know, kind of get the point across. Then it's really kind of saying, well, then we need to talk to someone else. We need to ask a professional. We need to call a friend. We need to talk to a partner about it and get some feedback or some assistance in some way. If you can work with that energy, then also Jupiter sextile Chiron is saying like, it's not until we speak up or we communicate and kind of voice our concerns or what we've been through or what we've experienced that we can get the help that we need. So I think I said in a previous video, if you're capable of helping other people this week and you're kind of more solid in this regard, you know, be available, you know, pay attention and watch for people who are going to ask for help. If you're somebody who's in need of assistance or feedback or some support, then you need to be speaking up and asking for it and allowing other people to show up. So much about relating is about learning not to be like hyper independent and like learning to be like, no, okay, you know what, I don't have to do this by myself, or I'm going to allow somebody to help me, or I'm going to give them the opportunity to kind of like be there for me and like feel needed or feel helpful or like wanted and appreciated. So I think a lot of us are kind of having to slow down and like recognize that we don't have to do things alone this week. And that's really opening the door to like better communication and like harmony within some of our relationships. The other thing that you're going to see is this is the day that Venus is going to trine Mars, which I love because, well, Mars rules the North Node, which is about action and independence. And Venus rules the South Node of relationships and partnerships. So this is like a beautiful aspect where the past and the present are harmonizing and they're supporting one another. What's challenging is that they're both in signs that they're not totally thrilled being in. And, you know, we do see that Mars is connected to Venus as like its dispositor. So there is some sense of being like, well, we can take action emotionally and like make some headway at home. And, you know, it does create changes in relationships, intimacy, finances, but like change can be good, right? And so I think that this is the day where we want to lean into that. We want to be more open to that. This is at an 18 degrees, so it is going to be about helping, healing, organizing, cleaning something up, things revolving around work and service and health related things, or things revolving around our jobs or employees. It can be a difficult degree, but I think with some of the aspects, there are more positive things going on than there are negative things. And even the moon in a trine to Chiron, right? And like the ruler sextile Chiron is saying, this is a day to be vulnerable, kind of put yourself out there. And, you know, whether that means that you're wanting to tell somebody how you're feeling, or it's a situation where you're trying to offer some kind of assistance. This is a really amazing day where there can be a lot of growth within relationships if you guys really take the time. At the end of the evening, we're going to see then the moon coming into a square with Neptune, which does make it a little bit more sensitive, emotional, and difficult to kind of relate. So keep that in mind, that once we get to the PM hours, we're going to start seeing that square, and it looks like the square is going to happen overnight. This is then going to take us into Wednesday the 9th, okay? So pull out your big red markers because I have a feeling this is going to be a first quarter moon for the books. So I don't always talk about this, but this kind of caught my eye this week. So remember, we had a solar eclipse in Libra on the 2nd of October, and it was at 11 degrees. So this is the first quarter square. So this is when the moon goes through Capricorn, and it's before it gets into Aries and it becomes the full moon. So this is known as the first quarter square. This is the bump in the road, the challenge, the hiccup, the delay, revolving around what intentions you set with a solar eclipse in Libra, right? So just to make it kind of general, solar eclipse in Libra, you know, what we are letting go of, who we are connecting with, what partnerships we are kind of aligning ourselves with. Then we have the moon go into Capricorn, where, you know, it's in its opposite sign of its domicile. It's not comfortable here, right? So as it goes through its fall in Capricorn, it's moving through a sign that is associated with Saturn. So it's like, there's more work, there's restriction, there's responsibility, there's sternness, there's seriousness, you know, and this is not something the moon likes, because the moon likes to kind of be comfortable and be in like Cancer or Taurus, where it can really kind of express itself more comfortably. So we're working, there's emotional labor when the moon goes through Capricorn. And Capricorn obviously is about government and things revolving around you know, leadership and people in uniform, and it can be about business leaders, global leaders, whatever. So not only is this the first quarter square, but we're also going to see that the moon is going to square the north and the south node. So I feel like the 9th and the 10th, okay, so this is going to be Wednesday and Thursday, are days where things get spicy, and like not in a good way. So the positive, because I do want to focus on the positive, is that we don't really start to see this get kicked up until the moon starts squaring the north and south node. So that's not going to be until right around the PM hours. I'm central, so it's going to be around 5 o'clock central. So that means it's going to be around 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. So on Wednesday in the PM hours, this is when the moon squares the north and the south node. Well, the nodes are associated with the moon, by the way, okay? So when the moon squares its own nodes, it means there are karmic events, things happening, fateful events that are kind of taking place right now. And it means that it's going to be about what leadership is doing, right? What you are taking action in your own life in the Capricorn area of your chart. So look at Capricorn. Capricorn is 4 signs away from Libra, so it can also be about long-standing issues, emotional issues, home issues, things revolving around the past and how things have been handled in the past, and whether or not we're going to look at it and go, have we mishandled things? Are we going to do that again? We could be reevaluating people, places, things from the past. And when the moon squares the north and the south node, it's at a 6, which is going to be about help, health, anything revolving around support. And then from Wednesday night on, it almost to me feels like Thursday, like all hell breaks loose. And I don't like saying that, but that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting looking at some of the transits. So just like hear me out. All right. So the moon's going to keep going through Capricorn. Just making sure I'm not missing anything else. Okay. Oh, and one other thing, Wednesday night, Jupiter goes retrograde. And Jupiter will be retrograde until about the beginning of February. I want to say it's like the 2nd of February. So for my Gemini risings, my Sag risings, my Pisces risings, obviously Jupiter's your kind of either your chart ruler or it's in your sign Gemini. So you're going to be reevaluating, who am I? What do I believe in? What did I think I knew? What information did I believe in? What am I returning back to? Where am I reassessing what I've read or what I've learned, right? Jupiter is a positive planet. It is about expansion, travel, and abundance. And so there can be this feeling of like having less enthusiasm or feeling like less motivated or like there's a lack of faith. And as you guys know, as we get into December, we will see another Jupiter square Saturn, except this time around, when Jupiter is retrograde and Saturn is direct, it is going to feel a lot heavier because Saturn is going to pack a little bit more weight being direct. And both of these signs are, you know, mutable signs. So it's about change. It's about change in weather, change in our thoughts, our communications, our belief system. Saturn in Pisces is a lot of like, do I say nothing? Do I keep quiet? You know, do I isolate? Do I just kind of vanish? Am I scared to say something? And then Jupiter in Gemini is like, am I saying too much? Am I thinking too much? Is my mind on fire? You know, am I too like outgoing and kind of like boisterous with like my opinions? And so that's why we have seen themes revolving around Saturn and Capricorn, like leadership and issues revolving around speaking out, and like certain politicians that like don't want to come in front of the press and the media, like that's quite literally Saturn square Jupiter and Gemini, like in these signs. And so what I think is that when Saturn is direct and Jupiter is retrograde, there is going to be much more of an emphasis on wrangling or reining in news, media, censorship, fact checking, like that kind of stuff. And it's going to quite literally be about what's being managed and controlled with what you can read, what you can see, what you can say, what videos you can see, what you're posting, what access you have to certain media or websites, right? Or communications. So it's going to be, it's going to be like a thing that we're going to be dealing with in December. But for right now, there is this sense of looking at the Gemini area of our chart and being like, okay, you know, where do I need to reflect and review? It doesn't mean positive things don't come, but I've thought for some time, and I've told a lot of my clients this, that the way to navigate Jupiter in Gemini, which does not, it gets kind of like, it's multitask too much, it gets kind of like distracted, is to actually stay the path with Saturn in Pisces, because there will be two squares. So it doesn't want Jupiter to expand too quickly. And if we can stay dedicated, compassionate, emotionally aware, maybe a little bit more mature, a little bit more peaceful, and also willing to like dissolve things, then by the time we get to the second half of 2025, when Jupiter then moves into Cancer and its exaltation and it trines Saturn, we will be rewarded for not moving too quickly. And it could quite literally be Jupiter in Gemini. People are going to move very quickly. People are going to be buying cars, and then the car market might kind of break down. People are going to be buying a bunch of new gadgets and joining a bunch of new media sites, and then they may not be as, you know, kind of as successful. So really stay the path with Saturn and Pisces. Don't expand too quickly, you know, and also be careful with what you say and make sure it really aligns with who you are behind closed doors or with your kind of your belief system. So then we're going to see the moon continue through Capricorn on Wednesday night. And when we get into Thursday, so this is a big red Sharpie day, at least in my opinion, come back and let me know in the comment section. Obviously, you know, don't just take my word for it. Like, use these forecasts to plan your week or make notes, and like the awareness is everything. So yeah, test me, even though I'm telling you this, you want to make sure it's really working. All right, so then what we're gonna see is first thing in the morning on Thursday, the moon in Capricorn comes into a square with the sun, once again at a 17. So that's about drama. When I say drama, I'm saying that because it's in a Leo degree. 17 is Leo. So it's like drama with romantic partners, drama with kids, drama with celebrities, drama in the world. There can be issues with leaders and leadership because Leo is very much about that. And it does kind of seem like there is some stuff getting kicked up revolving around, well, who is taking charge in situation? Who's being stern? You know, this is a Saturn sign. Who's restricting, limiting, you know, being a pain in the ass and, you know, not working well and getting on well or supporting other people, right? That's quite literally the square. And it's also been squaring the degree, which we had the solar eclipse. So then the moon's going to continue to keep going forward. And the next aspect it's going to make, okay, so this is like by midday, the next aspect it's going to make is it's going to oppose Mars. So moon and Capricorn in opposition to Mars. This means that somebody is going to be fighting back, getting protective, securing, protecting a space of some kind. There's going to be some kind of tension. And then the next aspect that's going to be made is the moon will then come into a square with Chiron, which is going to be about some kind of wounding happening on an individual level because of somebody mismanaging their responsibility or not taking care of a situation, or where individuals are feeling the pain, so they're like having to stand up and handle something on their own. And then we are going to see the moon come into a square with Mercury, which is going to be happening really early in the morning on the 11th. Okay, so this is like difficult communication and stress once again. Not partnering well or supporting other people. And it's at a 26, so it's about food, money, resources, supplies. And then the last aspect that the moon is going to make after it squares Mercury is it's going to conjunct Pluto. Friday morning, okay? So in the background, you know, Thursday the 10th into Friday the 11th, the moon has been engaged in a grand cardinal cross, okay? So we had the moon kind of going through 20 to 29 degrees. That means that there is action and some kind of themes revolving around Capricorn coming up that's squaring the sun and Mercury, making it difficult to partner and relate or have diplomacy, opposing Mars, which means there's some outside force where people are feeling scared or not protected or they're being attacked. And it's also squaring Chiron and Aries, okay? So when we have a grand cardinal cross, things are lit. There are things happening. And like I said, it's like a domino effect. So I'm looking at leadership, government officials. I'm looking at what's going on with military, what's going on with personnel, high-level personnel. Like apparently a lot of what's being said is that military is waiting on orders to be able to go in and help people right now. And I'm filming this on Friday. So, you know, you're watching this on Sunday, so I don't know what happens over the next 2 days. But I can tell you that this is where things are going to get to a critical turning point. And, you know, when Mars comes into an opposition with the moon, with Pluto, and it gets triggered like that, people start fighting back. That's what's going to happen. And you're going to see people who are not going to be willing to be as diplomatic and kind of like reasonable in any situation. You don't need a natural disaster for that to happen. You're going to start seeing people fighting back. So this is kind of the turning point, basically the 10th and the 11th. So know that there is a grand cardinal cross that's in the air, which is applying pressure to everything. Not only is this the first quarter square since that solar eclipse, but the moon is hitting Pluto. And this is going to be, I think, one of the last, if not the last, I'll have to check, conjunctions between the moon and Pluto at 29 degrees, right? Because we only have this until, you know, I think the third week of November or something. So there still might be another connection, but not while Pluto is at 29 retrograde. So that's not going to happen again. And then as we get into the 11th, which is Friday, then you're going to see the moon conjunct Pluto at 29. It's still squaring Mercury and Lilith, by the way. And then we're going to see Pluto is going to go direct. So Pluto will go direct after the moon is in Aquarius. So on the 11th, for all my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, your chart ruler is waking up now. When planets go from being direct to retrograde or retrograde to direct, usually big themes revolving around that planet makes headlines, right? So we know that Pluto is crime, corruption, abuse, toxicity, things revolving around also wealth, oil, right? Crime, hidden things. Capricorn is the crimes which those in charge are committing. I've been loving the fact that like people are commenting on my videos, especially the last one, and like they're also putting the pieces together. It occurred to me, but it was not something that I was really talking about at the time, but like just the information revolving around like, oh, the bids for land, you know, that there's been like a bid war that's been going back and forth between residents in parts of the areas that were affected by the storms and BlackRock, because they're sitting on what potentially could be massive amounts of lithium. Pluto is wealth and power, and it is things that is under the ground, right? And Capricorn is obviously those who are in charge. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist or even an astrologer to put 2 and 2 together to start to see that, well, Pluto's waking up, Mars is opposing Pluto, and this is kind of what's on the ground and, you know, what also could be underground or beneath homes, and the fight of the Mars-Pluto opposition. It's sick. It's so sick. And we're hearing horrible, horrible things. Like people are being told on the ground that they're going to come in and they're going to bulldoze parts of the cities, and that it's all just going to become federal land, and that people who have lived there or had land there aren't going to have anything. What kind of a world are we living in when people aren't respecting the dead? When you're not giving people time to grieve, when you're not helping them find bodies or loved ones, when you're not helping them recover people who could still be alive, when you're not getting supplies to people who are in need. Like, what is going on? This is a tipping point. Some of the transits that are happening this week, you know, the opportunity and the potential for exposure, it's there, it's in the skies. I think you're really going to start to see it as Mercury is coming into a square with Pluto, when, you know, people start to speak out more and relay information. But man, this is a fierce day. You know, and when the moon crosses Pluto and then Pluto is awake, it could be like one major eruptive event that happens that makes people go like, oh, hell no. And then what you'll see then from Friday and Saturday is just a whole slew of like communication transits and relaying and getting the point across. And, you know, after a difficult kind of Wednesday and Thursday, you know, the opportunity then to start to see the truth start to kind of trickle in closer to Friday night, Saturday. So when the moon is in Aquarius, we're looking at Uranus. Okay, nothing's going on with Uranus right now. Mercury's kind of quincunx it. We also have Venus that's starting to oppose it. So we're starting to feel that tension and that separation in regards to resources and money and relationships. Like that's in the skies. And then Pluto is direct. So that's pretty much Friday in a nutshell. As we go through into Saturday, so this will be the 12th. This is probably one of the better days of the entire week. Okay, so Saturday is a decent day on tap. The reason why I say that is we're going to have a grand air trine. So yet another good opportunity for socializing, connecting, getting the word out, being around other people, having support, like that kind of stuff. The moon in Aquarius is really highlighting like what's going on in the internet, what's going on with the masses, what's going on with friends and movement and our goals and anything revolving around kind of social or environmental themes. So we're going to see at some point throughout this transit that the moon will come into a trine with the sun, so things flow, right? This is where we're socializing, connecting with people, mixing, mingling, you know, and aligning with relationships. Great networking day, great party day, great going out with friends day, great kind of going on date day. And then we will also start to see the moon come into harmony with Jupiter, and the sun is coming into harmony with Jupiter. So Saturday is a very nice day. This is one of the few ones that I think are good all week. You are going to start to see the moon trine the sun in the evening. It looks like it's around a 20, okay? And then you are also going to see then the moon trine Jupiter. So like Saturday night is such a fun, social, getting together, mixing, mingling type of vibe. But in the back of my mind, okay, just so you guys know, yes, that's a beautiful aspect. The sun's coming into a square with Mars. So we're starting to feel like that tension, you know, the pressure between like two opposing forces of people who don't want to change. And Cancer is about home, family, domestic, the past. Libra is about partnerships where we're kind of going what we're doing together. So there is a little bit of stress and tension between relationships and home and family. We also are starting to see now Mercury coming into a square with Pluto, so there can be intense communication and kind of feeling interrogated or pressed for information, finding it difficult to be diplomatic. And we're also starting to see Venus opposing Uranus. So there's 3 really big kind of like challenging aspects when it comes to relationships, right? Like Venus deals with Libra season. It's about relationships. It's going through a sign of change. And then obviously, you know, Mercury is very much connected to how we can kind of communicate and relate to each other. Like, man, when things get tough, and especially the kind of mid-October period when things get tough, it's going to really show us who we really are in relationships. Like, it's going to show us who we're really partnered with or to, and it can make or break certain relationships in this next week. So be mindful of that if there's some stress or some pressure, like, you know, it's in the skies that there can be some difficulty in relating and getting along, but we want to lean into the Sun trine Jupiter. It's like, yes, but we have to get through it together. Yes, I hear what you're saying, you know, learning how to hear somebody else's perspective and having like the back and forth and trying to work together as a team, or including other people, and like knowing when to call other people in because you're in a situation where you need support. That's what's going to kind of get you guys through this. So some of you guys are going to start feeling that on Saturday night. Some of you guys are not going to get blindsided with this until like Sunday and Monday. So this will take us to Sunday the 13th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Aquarius. Okay. There's some stuff going on here. You know, that moon's going to come into a square with Uranus, which means that when it comes to our goals, our future kind of plans, or socializing, or this or that, there's something that's at odds because there's some destabilizing coming up Sunday morning. Possibly a lot of people talking about some kind of future market prediction, or people are starting to kind of see patterns and sequences either in crypto or in the, you know, markets that are going to be kind of giving the insight maybe like the day before. This will be a T-square between the moon, Venus, and Uranus. So it means that people are kind of sparking up, talking about something, sharing some kind of information about goods, resources, and also money. Pleased to hear that there was a temporary agreement for the longshoremen strike. So apparently, touch wood, you know, we were able to kind of bypass that at least until January. It looks like they're going to give it time to kind of renegotiate. So we'll see what happens, but it's still kicking the can down the road because they're still going to have to do that. I have been hearing so many different perspectives on both sides. You know, there's some people being like, well, you know, they're getting paid too much and this and that, and they get paid so much for what they're doing. And then there's other people being like, well, they honored their agreement and they, you know, could have, you know, had a strike actually a long time ago, but they have seen this all the way through, and that in some of the agreements, there was not going to be automation at the docks, and now there's automation. So they're saying that some of them are striking because they basically have voided the contract by bringing in things that are going to completely eliminate their jobs potentially in the future. So yeah, I can understand why they would want to strike. There's other people coming out saying the reason why they're potentially striking is because of child trafficking, and that, you know, there is speculation and things that are being seen revolving around that at the ports. So obviously there's a lot of information out there. So I wonder, you know, what stalled it. And, you know, obviously it would have been a really bad situation having that strike regardless, because it would have impacted America in a very critical way. But, you know, with everything that's been going on with some of the storms and some of the areas affected, we already have enough issues getting people, you know, getting supplies into some of these areas. So I'm glad to hear that we're not dealing with a strike on top of that. Not to mention the crippling effect it would have had on obviously like the economy and like jobs and stuff. So yes, it's good for now because it's going to avert some major crisis, but inevitably it's still going to have to be dealt with down the road. So I'm wondering like what this moon square, you know, of fallen Venus and Uranus is going to be. Likely people starting to get a little spooked about some stuff that's coming up in the markets Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is also the day that we are going to see Mercury square Pluto. So that's where these intense kind of negotiation, communication, finding it hard to be diplomatic. You know, some people give kind of ultimatums when I see planets at 29 degrees of Libra squaring 29 degrees of Pluto. It's like, you either do this or nothing. And if you don't do this, then this is what I'm going to do, you know? And like, that's kind of what's in the skies especially seeing the sun square Mars, that there is this kind of people, you know, taking it upon themselves to act or behave in a way that could be very emotionally reactionary, or, you know, people saying that if you don't work with me, then, you know, we're going to have some big sweeping changes at home, or this or that. Like, it's very intimidating. I find that when we have squares to Pluto, there's always an intimidation aspect there. And so you may want to go back and think about what happened in this last month when Venus was squaring Pluto, because that could have been some issues where there were some hard discussions in love and money. And now we've got Mercury squaring that. And I feel like this is likely going to be intimidation of people revolving around damning information that would be disclosed. And some legal things, like we're literally hearing people being told that if they go in and they try to help people in some of these areas, that they will be arrested. Right? But then you're also hearing that, you know, until they get orders, they can't get in and they can't go and help them. And whether that is like FEMA, or that's like coming from like the, you know, the United States armed defenses and services, like, and I understand, I feel for some of the military involved, because there will be repercussions if they do not follow orders. I understand that. But where are these orders coming from? That's what I want to know. That's the question I'm going to keep asking. Right? Everybody's getting the runaround, but why is it that there is some incentive like not to help people? Like, who is in charge? And, you know, best believe Pluto and Capricorn is the big boss. So there is definitely someone or something that's kind of pulling the strings, that's trying to create as much conflict or confusion and getting people upset and angry as possible. Now in your life, it's Pluto and Capricorn, whatever house it's in, is creating a lot of problems and disruption, like not allowing something to flow in the Cancer area of your chart, and it's being brought out through the Libra area of your chart. This is the T-square, right? So the Libra action is kind of bringing this up, and this is where we need to ask other people for help, or we need to be a little bit more diplomatic. And then you throw Chiron into the mix, and it's pretty much an all week long grand cardinal cross. So interesting to see these squares at 29 degrees, and then boom, you know, Mercury is going to go into Scorpio. So that's definitely kind of kicking off this theme revolving around, well, yeah, we are going to get to the bottom of it. We are going to expose it, you know, and that's generally a time where you see a lot more interesting kind of news media and stuff coming up as well. I've heard a lot of people like speculating about like, oh, the October surprise. You know, the October surprise, I think, is going to be the Mercury Scorpio transit, where, you know, Mercury comes into a trine with Saturn, and there's going to be some very damning information that's going to come out about politicians. Mercury trining Mars, it's going to be about things that are going on behind closed doors in private home residence, things revolving around property, things that are being seized, information pertaining to stuff that's happened in the past. So I think that's really what this is going to be about, to be honest with you. And it could be particularly damning, especially for people in positions of power, and stuff that has been hidden, right? Or kind of like withheld. Then we're going to see the Sun in Libra trine Jupiter. So this is positive, because later in the day, we start to see that kick in, which is a generally positive, happy-go-lucky, everything is kind of falling into place day. Things feel really expansive and joyous, especially at 21. This is like Sagittarius, right? So there is this theme of like, yeah, what we're learning, what we're realizing, how we're expanding, you know, about global matters or law or judges or courts, you know. So we have like a nice, let me go back. We have like a nice air trine leading up to that. So you've got that really, I mean, for the most part, man, like into the PM hours. And then right around the afternoon, that moon's going to drop into Pisces. So it's a vibe change, right? But still, there is an opportunity to partner, band together, collaborate, connect, communicate, share, and learn. But the problem is that when the sun comes into a trine with Jupiter, it's opposing Chiron. And Chiron in Aries is very lonely, isolated, separated, especially retrograde. It's in pain. It's like the pain of loneliness and separation. And then we've got Sun conjunct Juno, trine Jupiter. It's like, man, this is going to be a time where like people are really feeling the effects of like, oh, I just wish I had someone, you know, I wish I had a therapist. I wish I had a business partner. I wish I had more friends. I wish I had a significant other. There is this pain of separation here. But if we work with the trine of Jupiter and we communicate that, or we share, or we tell people what we want or what we're looking for, there's a way out. And then we've got the sun coming into a square with Mars, which you will be feeling most of the day. It's going to happen overnight into like Monday. And that's where issues with like ego and too much togetherness or too much diplomacy or people pleasing, you know, brings up frustration, emotions, and agitation. Like, my God, there's just like so much going on Sunday. Sun square Mars does make me feel like this is where people start getting combative and confrontational or emotionally reactionary to what people are trying to get them to go along with. Like, the sun in Libra can be very much like, this is good for you. Like, we're just trying to help you. Like, we're here. Like, let me just do my thing. And then people getting agitated being like, no, I don't want you in my home. Like, I don't need your assistance. Like, you're not welcome here. And so people are going to start getting kind of agitated because they're going to feel like people are overstepping their boundaries in a way, right? And then obviously with that moon in Pisces, doesn't really resonate with Libra. You know, Pisces is going to be more emotional, sensitive, kind of like complacent in a way. And the one aspect you are going to see is that the moon in Pisces will trine Mercury, which means some people are just going to intuitively be like, I feel like I need to do this, not that. And even though somebody's trying to convince me or trying to nudge me or trying to tell me to do something, like, that doesn't feel right. Pay attention to your gut feelings on Sunday night. That's one thing I will tell you, right? With Mercury and Scorpio, it's like everybody needs a Mercury and Scorpio friend, or everybody needs like a Scorpio friend or a Scorpio rising, you know, or somebody who's got like a 8th house stellium. And we may be like the crazy tin hat foil wearing people, but I have to tell you guys, if I had $1 for every single time that I've had a friend or a client or somebody come back to me in this last year and be like, everything that you said 3 or 4 years ago that was going to happen is now happening, like, I probably would not be sitting on YouTube doing videos anymore. Actually, I probably would be, never mind. But you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not me kind of like tooting my own horn. It's more me being like, I tell you guys these things because of what I see in the skies. And so some people listen and some people are like, oh, I just hope that never happens. And then it does. And then you guys freak out. So what I'm seeing next, like what's coming next, is going to be at the end of this week, people trying to convince you like, everything's fine, don't worry, everything's good. And you're going to have a situation where your intuition is going to be like, no, it's not. This is not a good idea. Or this doesn't feel right. Or something feels off. Listen to that feeling, right? And pay attention as Mercury goes through Scorpio for the next month, because there's lots of support. So if you're meditating, resting, relaxing, you know, talking to your family more, talking to your community more, kind of getting a vibe for like what's going on out in the world, you're going to feel a little bit more safe or secure. Scorpio is a sign that deals with like prepping, right? So Mercury in Scorpio is like, you're backing up your computers, right? You're putting cases on some of your electronics. Maybe you're getting a Faraday bag. Maybe you're deciding that you want to get some alternative, you know, method of communication. And while these things sound crazy, it doesn't sound so crazy to me with Mercury going into Scorpio, with Venus opposing Uranus. I mean, woo! I mean, especially at 26, that is a degree, and you'll see that at the beginning of next week, but that is a degree that deals very specifically with cash, resources, physical goods, food, and like supplies, right? And Venus rules Taurus. So when it's in an opposition, it means that people are going to be like, there are things that I need that I'm not getting, right? And where am I going to get it? And then when they can't get it, they kind of go crazy because Uranus is about reacting. So you may not be in a part of the world or even in part of the country that's in some of these affected areas, but nevertheless, some of the astrology is saying that you never know when there can be something that can come up that can create some stress. And like, you know, obviously very thankful myself not to be in some of these areas, but it makes me think like, man, what if that did happen here? You know, or if I had family in some of these places. That's just like what I keep thinking about. So it's really important maybe to do a little bit more reflecting with Mercury and Scorpio on what your gut's telling you. And I think the trines to Saturn, which you'll see inevitably kind of down the road, is a much more serious kind of commitment or like plan, you know, especially like I think of Saturn in Pisces is like, do you have water? Do you have water treatment? Do you have some kind of like backup, you know, medication? Do you know where the closest hospital is? Like that kind of stuff. And then obviously at some point, you know, we will also see Mercury trine Mars, which is going to be about being assertive, being direct, and learning how to communicate, learning how to kind of protect yourself. And I think that's going to be about protecting yourself with information, knowledge, and knowing your rights, knowing your property rights. You know, that's something that everybody should know right now. Everybody should have their probably their state kind of property rights somewhere in their home, or they should at least be aware of it, or they should be able to kind of recite parts of it. Same thing goes for your civil rights and your constitutional rights. All of these things are things that people should know right now. If you do not know these things, if you're not aware, if you're not reading up on them, I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. Like, it's not really something that there's a lot of effort to teach people right now. And if you're not aware, then you're not going to be capable of being able to defend yourself. So I really recommend that. Maybe I'll add some books to my book list. As many of you guys may or may not know, any of the books that I use on my channel, whether this is like the Sapient Symbols book or certain like tarot decks and stuff, I put all of that in a link. So down below, there's like an Amazon book link, so you can click that, and I'm always updating that and putting some astrology books or metaphysical books. And obviously I've had books on there for the last 2 years about critical thinking and tyranny. Well, now you guys know why. So I will add some books there that can be really beneficial and helpful for some of the information that I'm referencing, if that's something that you'd like to have on hand. All right, so with that being said, let's get into talking all about the Mercury through the 12 rising signs, so you guys know where Mercury is going. As always, I am a Western astrologer. I do not practice Vedic. I will be using the whole Western system, so you guys can listen to that. It will be accurate if you listen to your rising sign, because it's going to be based off of the ingress at 0 degrees. You can also listen to your moon and your sun sign. Those are helpful as well. But I do recommend listening to your rising sign, as it's going to be the most active, because it's going to be based off of zodiacal order. My Mercury ruled charts. So my Gemini risings, my Virgo risings, Mercury rules your chart, so that planetary change is really important. So just listen up, pay attention to that, as well as Scorpio, sun, moon rising, or Scorpio placements. Obviously, Mercury is going into your sign, so you get the megaphone this month. All right, so let's start first with my Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? So you're going to be experiencing Mercury's trek through your 8th house. Okay, so it's going through your 8th house where Venus has been. The sun will be there pretty soon. So for you, the themes basically with Mercury going into your 8th house is going to be about taking a deep dive into shared resources. It could be research, it could be occult knowledge, dealing with life's deeper mysteries. That is what you're dealing with over the next month. Now, I predict for you guys, there's opportunities for financial gains through joint ventures or inheritance. There can be profound insights also into life and death, or psychological kind of topics or lessons. And my tip for you, Aries, is really focus on exploring financial strategies with partners. Talk to other people. It could be somebody to help, manage your taxes, talking to your partners or your business partners about managing expenses. It can also be about getting your tax documents together and getting everything ready for this next upcoming year. Definitely take some time also to do a little bit more of a deeper dive into like metaphysical studies, right? This could be about learning more about life after death, maybe reading tarot, or any issues revolving around like mortality. So this can be good for like insurance, inheritance, setting up wills, estates, things like that, if you're needing to get some of that stuff in order. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You will be experiencing Mercury's transit through Scorpio in your natal 7th house. All right, so for you, my Tauruses, this is basically lots of communication revolving around connection with romantic partners or committed one-on-one relationships. So Mercury has connections to your 5th house, which can be about romance, creativity, having fun, or children. It's also about your 2nd house of values, money, resources, and spending power. So really strong period for business, for clients, for your marketplace, for selling things. It's also really great for communication and connection in relationships, or working with a therapist. This is about going deeper, and negotiations can also be about power and emotional truths here. Now, I predict for you, Taurus, that there can be some intense partnership themes coming up, and possibly this is about having conversations revolving around power struggles. Contracts could involve some secretive or transformative elements. That's what's beneficial. I would recommend for you guys throughout this next month to engage in discussions that can explore the deeper layers of relationships. And this is about aiming for some kind of mutual transformation, right? How can we have more time together? How can we have more fun? How can we be better with strengthening our resources, strengthening our partnership? What are we kind of doing? What are we building together? And if it's not with a romantic partner or a client, it could be with one of your kids because Mercury is connected to your 5th house. It could also be about some kind of creative collaboration as well. Good luck, Taurus. All right, Gemini and Gemini rising, your chart ruler's on the move. Mercury is going through Scorpio, a sign you have nothing in common with, but that's okay because Mercury does very well in the 6th house. So while you have this Mercury in the 6th house transit, okay, you are Mercury. So this is putting you into 6th house places, and it's also kind of tying in the 4th house as well. So that's like home, family, organization type of themes. So the 6th house is about your work routines. It is about your health practices, and it can also involve more intensity or secrecy, focusing on deeper healing. There can be more of a focus on like mental health, reproductive health, sexual health. There can be more of an emphasis on transforming something about your habits or where you're working or your relationship with coworkers or even involving pets. So for you, my predictions are that you may have a change in your job, and the change in your job or in some of your daily routines or habits can be connected to how you need to make changes that are better for you psychologically. Or if you're in psychological fields or things revolving around health or animals, that can be coming up as well. And health routines could and should involve some sort of like detox. It can also be about some kind of like psychoanalysis that can be coming up for you as well. I recommend for this next month implementing work practices that allow for like deeper focus. So you want to incorporate things like meditation, consider also health regimens and like focusing on your emotional well-being. You may be like doing a deep cleanse of your home or like a reorganization of your home or your office space. That's possible as well. Maybe you're working from home, maybe you're fixing something at home, or you're taking care of like a relative or somebody within your space. That can be kind of taking place as well. And it's just about making sure that you have like a really healthy, like adequate balance, right? Work-life balance, and making sure that you're not overdoing something that could be work or some kind of habit or routine. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys will be experiencing Mercury's transit through the sign of Scorpio, and this is going to be going through your 5th house. And I think you're going to like this, Cancer. I really do. It is going to be going through another sister water sign, so it will be harmonizing obviously with your planets as well as Mars in your 1st house. When Mercury goes through the 5th house, this is really putting a spotlight on, creative projects, romantic relationships. They could definitely take on a much more profound, transformative quality. There could be some changes going on in how you communicate and express yourself, or how you're communicating with a romantic partner or with a child. It's a good time if you're in like creative writing fields as well, or media, because Mercury rules your 3rd house as well as your 12th house. So there can be like hidden talents coming out where, you're like, I really just want to get into like writing, or I have this vision for creating a blog or a podcast or like, like a new social media account. And like you start working on it, and it's something that you might be doing kind of in your off time, but you enjoy doing it because it's like relaxing. I do think that with this transit, for predictions, I believe that there can be more romantic encounters. They can be a little bit more intense, or you can feel like there's a little bit more in-depth conversations with romantic people. Creative outlets also, might be kind of coming up, but they might be exploring like deeper themes revolving around personal transformation or transformation of self-expression. And if this were me, I would channel this energy into art that explores depth or engage in relationships with a willingness to go deep, to be vulnerable. It's about having a profound connection. Like you might find that you're on a date with somebody and you have just like a really deep conversation and you're like, oh, this is like it for me. Something they say or how they say it or the way that they engage with you can be really, really significant. It is possible that there is some unexpected communication that's kind of happening in romantic relationships that can catch you off guard, or you're having dreams about somebody and then they reach out to you and then they kind of come in or they come back around. Okay? So enjoy that transit, Cancer. Have fun. We have Leo and Leo rising. You guys will be experiencing Mercury's transit through Scorpio in your natal 4th house. All right, Leo. So the 4th house transit for you always deals with home and family, okay? And obviously it's in a sign that naturally squares you. So all of the fixed signs will kind of feel this a little bit more. I do see this as there being like a real emphasis on like family secrets with Scorpio in the 4th house. They may surface. The home environment becomes a place for emotional or psychological work. It can also be bringing up the themes of what you're investing into your home, because Mercury is connected to your money house, and what your goals are when it comes to friends or family. So maybe, you know, the investment is, oh, I'm looking to buy a house, or I'm buying new furniture, or I want to, you know, be able to entertain, or I have a friend coming to stay with me, or I've got a person coming to stay with me. So you're putting a little bit more thought and emphasis into how you can change and transform your home and make it like more inviting, or rearranging your space, or maybe you're moving, right? So I predict for you guys that family dynamics could shift under this transit, perhaps through revelations or deep bonding. Obviously, throughout this transit, we are going to see some squares to something you have in Leo and some oppositions to Uranus. So you become the focal point of changes between your home and also your career or your reputation. It may mean that there's more communication or investing in time with family. I would just recommend if you've been looking to do some home renovations that reflect like a deeper, more soulful aesthetic, this could be a time where you start planning that. If you're looking for a place that genuinely feels like home, you might start looking for a home now. It may also be a time where there's a lot of like heart-to-heart conversations with family, or maybe there's an opportunity to do some like family constellation work, or maybe some like therapy with like a relative. That can be something else that you can consider doing that can kind of help bring some healing to this area of your chart. Good luck. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing the Mercury and Scorpio transit in your natal 3rd house. Obviously, you're a child of Mercury, so wherever Mercury is where you are, Virgo, and that's the 3rd house. And Mercury loves being in the 3rd house, so this is actually a pretty good transit for you. This is going to be really putting the spotlight on communication themes. It is possible that it can also touch on traveling or planning trips, learning, communication with you know, extended family, with neighbors. Themes revolving around short distance trips or vehicles can kind of come to mind here as well. But when Mercury's in Scorpio, it's definitely like more probing. And this might mean that there's more like intellectual pursuits and taking on some sense of like psychological or investigative kind of flavor. So you might be putting more of an emphasis on like writing something, learning something, you know, building a website, planning a trip, getting really deep into like a book you're reading or like a language you're learning. And Mercury also is connected to your 10th house of career. So this could be about communications with bosses. It could be about, you know, talking about new softwares and systems. You might have to be doing some training or traveling for work. That can come up here as well. And I think that, you know, for this transit, I'm just predicting that, you know, conversations can lead to significant, you know, levels of new awareness. And I also think about how, you know, short trips may involve research or something that you're learning. And some of the trines that you're going to see to your 11th and your 7th house throughout this transit opens the door to like meeting people, traveling with partners, communicating and signing contracts, hanging out with friends more, being able to kind of join networks. So it's a pretty good transit for you guys for the most part. I don't really see it being too challenging. And now would definitely be the time if you were thinking about like moving, traveling, or changing vehicles. I think it's going to kind of come up under these transits. Good luck, Virgo. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You will be experiencing Mercury's transit through Scorpio in your natal 2nd house. All right, so for you, my Libras and Libra risings, the themes are going to be about financial dealings because this is the 2nd house. So it does deal with your finances, your resources, possessions that you own, money that you're spending. And obviously when Mercury goes through Scorpio, There's more secrets, or there's more intensity. There can be much more of an emphasis on values and possessions, and like undergoing some kind of transformation in regards to these things. Now, Mercury deals with higher education, belief, law, legality, philosophy, as well as travel and kind of behind the scenes subconscious and psychological themes. So certainly with Mercury going into the second house, you could be spending more money on health, healing, travel, right? It could be also about education. It could be about programs, or maybe you're spending money on things that you're kind of being a little bit more kind of private about. I'm predicting that there could be possible shifts in financial status. This could be through like inheritance or uncovering hidden resources or money that you didn't anticipate that was going to come in, or support you didn't think that you were going to get. And that could be through a boost in business. That could be international. It could also be through something that's involving like import or export, or teaching or education in some way. And being that Venus has already gone through this part of the chart, you know, it looks like things have already been good, but now it's going to be, okay, how do we generate more of that? And creative ideas that you're having about like making more money. And that's pretty much it. So I hope it's a good transit for you guys. Just remember, you know, that there can be changes with Mercury, but I would review your financial strategies, and you may be considering investments that require research before making an investment, or, you know, before you make some major change to your resources, you're having to kind of really dig deep and get some information before you make that shift. Okay? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Scorpio, you are experiencing Mercury's transit into your sign. So if you're Scorpio rising, it's in your first house. So you get your little megaphone now. With Mercury crossing your ascendant, you definitely feel more chatty. There is like a sense of being like a transmitter of sorts, right? Because Mercury is about communication, travel, connection. So you might feel like you're a little busier than usual, but the themes are going to be about self-expression because it's in the first house. So it's taking on a much more deep, intense quality. There is this focus on transforming your personal image maybe. And Mercury is connected to your joint resources. So it can be about transformation of the mind, communication, connection, and also the 11th house, which deals with goals, other people. So you may be like trying to like wake other people up. You might be like shocking people with like things that you have to say, or news that you have, or the fact that you're like kind of coming out with something, or you're sharing or exposing something. But you also might be more open to change than usual, you know, and you're more vulnerable maybe throughout this transit. I predict that there can be also increased introspection, and it can be both a time for like personal makeovers, but also it's about the inner self. It's not just about the outer appearance. It can be about the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you think, you know, the way that you see the world. I recommend making this be more about personal development. As a Scorpio rising, especially for you guys, I would say like make a list of things that you're afraid of and share them with other people, right? For accountability, it's like, okay, I'm afraid of doing this, this, and this, but I'm working on it, you know, and like at least acknowledging the fact that there are things that you're trying to change, and like sharing that with other people, and receiving support in the process of that, I think can be like really wonderful. And the Mercury transit, you know, it's about how you think, how you feel. And you're going to see nothing but positive aspects between Saturn and your chart ruler Mars, which means that it's okay to be afraid of things. It's okay to be afraid of change or vulnerability or changes of the heart or matters with romance or children or self-expression, that you're learning something new about yourself throughout this process. So you're kind of getting the mind on board with that before you start to see some of the physical manifestations and changes kind of come down the line. Okay? Good luck, Scorpio. We've got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? You are dealing with the 12th house transit, which you've already kind of been dealing with Venus for a little bit, but now you've got Mercury entering into your 12th house in the sign of Scorpio. Well, the 12th house is deeply introspective. It is subconscious. It's hidden. It's what happens in your sleep or behind closed doors in private. This is where we're processing something. Hidden knowledge, spiritual insights can dominate our thoughts. And also solitude becomes like a little bit more necessary or insightful. Now, Mercury rules your 12th house of relationships and your 10th house of career and reputation. So there can be this feeling of like having doubt or questioning if you want to make changes in these areas of your life, or maybe you're kind of working behind the scenes a little bit. Maybe you want to be a little less available for people. Maybe there is a sense of being like, I'm traveling, I'm going on a retreat, I'm away, you know, I'm not as easily accessible maybe by email or by phone, or I need some time away from work or even from like a partner. That can definitely be happening here. I do think that this is a period of spiritual transformation. If you go to a retreat, you go to a healing center, you go to a spa, you go and work with a therapist, wonderful times, especially if you're wanting to release or relieve any fear that you have about changes in your career, your reputation, your relationships, your status. That can be coming up throughout this transit in a very big way. I do feel like there's a lot of changes going on revolving around relationships and how that's going to be impacting your home and your emotions and also your joint resources. And so there is like this sense of being like, okay, if I'm going deeper into relationships, like what that means. And like some Sag risings or Sag placements can be like, am I losing my freedom, you know? And for other people, it's like, I am, you know, finally breaking free and I'm having changes now, or I'm breaking away from a relationship or from my family. And like, now I'm going to have more independence. And like, what does that mean? So there is some sense of reflecting on these changes and how it is directly tied to other people and also your status. I would encourage you to just embrace the quiet time with planets in your 12th house. You know, as we come into Scorpio season and planets move through your 12th house, if you're a Sag rising, this is kind of like the reflection on the last year, and like things are coming to like to a head, and they're kind of like wrapping up, and you're doing your review before you come into Sagittarius season. So reflect, engage in practices like meditation or dream work that can really help bring you some like profound insights revolving around what's going on in your subconscious and what you're ready to kind of release. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You will be experiencing Mercury's transit through Scorpio in your natal 11th house. For you, Capricorn, this is all about socializing. This is also about your, you know, your group affiliations, your friends. You know, it might be deeper involved, kind of heart-to-heart conversations with people who you're closest to. It could also mean that there's secret alliances or bonds that are coming up within your social group, and it's to help you transform something, maybe about your image or about your like relationship to other people. Mercury has associations with the 9th house of people who might be further away, or it might be about your faith, your belief, or your philosophy, as well as health, habits, and routine. So I like this transit for like traveling for training for work. I like this transit for networking with people in other places. I like this for team building exercises. I like this for group fitness and wellness retreats, or even just going to like group fitness classes locally. I think that this is going to be a time where if you're joining or you're leading groups that deal with transformation or secrets or even like investments, you may find that friendships can really deepen significantly, and like you can form some very special bonds with people who can help you feel like you're capable of creating change, or you're inspiring other people to do that. I would encourage you also to just engage in community activities that can involve transformation or share a deep, meaningful connection with friends. People might be traveling, you know, and you can see them while they're traveling, or vice versa. If you're going somewhere, you might be checking in with friends and trying to kind of make the time and the space to be able to see them. This can also be really about carving out some changes in your schedule to feel like you have time to socialize and spend time with other people because of the connection with Mercury in your 6th house. Now you're ruled by Saturn, so something that you will see is that Mercury trine Saturn is saying you're getting support from a network, a friend, a community, and they're helping you in some way when it comes to moving, getting a car, signing a contract, making a connection, promoting some kind of media. So you want to be looking for a group affiliation because you're going to reap the benefits of that down the road when Mercury comes into a trine with Saturn. Okay? Good luck, Capricorn. We have Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You'll be experiencing Mercury's transit through Scorpio for your natal 10th house of career, status, and reputation. So you're getting ready to see a pretty significant period with Mercury and the Sun going through your 10th house to like really do business, okay? So there's a lot of business stuff coming up. Venus is already there, and you're gonna see both Mercury and the Sun go through here, trine Saturn, your traditional ruler, trine Mars in your 6th house of work, like work. It's going to be very busy, very productive. Mercury is the messenger, right? So when Mercury goes through the 10th house, we find that there is more meetings, right? We're more ambitious, we're more willing to talk to clients, talk to the boss, things like that. So your career ambitions are going to take on much more intensity, although you may also be a little bit more secretive, or be more open to changing or renegotiating or transforming something about your career. And your public image may undergo a change here as well. Now, Mercury deals with your 8th house, so it's other people's money, change and transformation, you know, of your habits, your routine, where you're working, how you're working. And it's also your 5th house, which deals with creativity, self-employment, taking chances, children. So some of you guys might be like, oh, I've got this new creative project that I'm getting ready to launch, or I'm working with my kid, or, you know, it's possible that you're like, what's changing is I'm becoming a parent, or something like that can kind of be happening. I do think that it's also about being more creative because it's activating your 5th house, and that's where you have Jupiter right now. I'm predicting career advancements can come through like secret information or like knowledge, or through some kind of change or restructuring something in the workplace. So it can be changes with jobs, positions, scheduling, things like that. And that's what is positive for you, is like lots of opportunity to negotiate that and kind of structure that change. I would recommend to use this time to strategize, because Mercury in Scorpio is really good for strategy. So you're strategizing your career path and you're focusing on power dynamics and transformation, especially when you see Mercury trine Saturn at some point. That's going to be about like negotiating like future financial agreements, discussions, contracts. And you will also see this trine Mars in your 6th house. So it's like you're planning into next year. You're going to have to start talking about staff and scheduling and money and resources, and like what you're going to be, you know, able to kind of either predict or project in terms of future financial things. So very busy throughout this time, and try to be strategic and be thinking a few steps ahead while you go through this Mercury in Scorpio transit. And I know it does square you by sign, but you know, in my opinion, because you will see both oppositions to Uranus and squares, it's really leaning on you to be like, okay, I got to be a team player. I got to work with a group of people, right? I have to be thinking about the future. And it's really kind of helping you tap into like your Aquarius nature. Good luck. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. So you guys will be experiencing Mercury transiting through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 9th house, and it will be in a fellow sister water sign. So you will be experiencing trines to Saturn as well as Neptune, or any other personal planet that you have in Pisces. So I think you'll like some of the water trines, as all of the water signs I think will. Mercury going through the 9th house. So this is going to be bringing up themes that are more connected to like your philosophical or religious beliefs. It can also be about transforming what your beliefs are in general about the world, about your purpose. This is about long-term plans, long-distance travel, you know, transformation of the mind, transformation of resources, how you look at change. And also it can be about learning about kind of spiritual or esoteric topics. Now, Mercury deals with relationships and one-on-one relationships, as well as home and family. So this could be about like bridging the gaps in distance with, you know, romantic partners at a distance, or with family at a distance. It may mean that you're, you know, going to be working with a mentor or a teacher or a therapist. You're planning a trip to go somewhere with a partner or with a relative. You're trying to see the bigger picture of what has been changing with your relationships, or maybe when you travel, what you realize, how you change as a person. Applying for like legal status documents, colleges, anything like that can be beneficial during this transit, especially if you like need help getting into something. So whether it's like you need a recommendation letter, or maybe you need to like work with somebody when it comes to a visa matter or an immigration matter, you know, you'll get support from somebody, because Virgo in the 7th house is somebody who can help you. What I am seeing in terms of predictions is just studying or teaching subjects, maybe like psychology, mysticism, significant travel, or legal matters can arise. Now, my tips for you are expand the mind through philosophies that challenge your current beliefs, because Scorpio is about transforming. And it's also about traveling to places with like a rich or hidden history, right? It's like Scorpio could also be like the desert, or things that are going to be like more warm or dry. And we will see Mercury trine Saturn in your sign at some point throughout the transit. So I do kind of see this as what you're committing to, like your beliefs, your travels, your study habits, right? Working in a program, writing a book. There is something that you're like, I know this is part of my path. I have to do this thing. And you'll see something beneficial kind of come from that, even if it's something that you inevitably may have to do alone. And studying like the hidden mysteries, you know, can be like really significant right now. Like I would think like Mercury going through the 9th house, I would go and be learning or reading The Secret Teachings of All Ages. I think that would be a good book. It's a big book, but that would be a good book for this transit. Or like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you know, or you could be going and like learning about like near-death experiences, you know, very kind of Scorpio 9th house, or learning about, you know, hidden symbolism or secret mystery teachings, or things revolving around like ancient, you know, history. That would all be really good during this particular transit. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoy the Mercury and Scorpio transit. It's definitely a fun one. And I think it's going to help us kind of cut through some of the BS and some of the heaviness with some of the other transits that are going on. Make the most of Saturday night. I think Saturday night is an epic night to go out, socialize, and meet with people. Watch for things on Thursday and Friday where it gets a little sticky. I do think that we're going to see some really significant events that are going to be eventually leading up to what will be next week's full moon in Aries. If you guys haven't seen that video, check it out. I put it out. It is out early for you, and make sure that you are subscribed so you get the heads up when we have all the other videos throughout this week. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. We do, you know, long format educational stuff. I teach you guys astrology as we go. We have horoscopes, new and full moon reports, sometimes some free webinars, and much, much more. So make sure you're subscribed. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and leave me a comment below and let me know, do you have Mercury in Scorpio, or like maybe Mercury in the 8th house, or Mercury Pluto aspect? What do you think about some of the stuff that I've been mentioning? I know there are some people in some of the affected areas who have commented, so I appreciate your feedback. And let's all think some positive thoughts and put some good intentions out there for exposing some of this stuff out in the world. I think that that's part of the reason why I continue with my platform, is to talk about stuff that other people seem to not want to talk about. So I don't understand why. Check out my website below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I do have my webinars from the previous eclipses that we just had. I also teach tarot and astrology. So if you'd like to learn astrology with me, I've got a beginner's level 101 and a 201 course, study at your own pace. I am wrapping up the calendars for 2025. So I'm hoping to have those ready pretty soon for you guys. If you guys are looking for an astrology calendar, this one's really cool. So I'm excited to put this out for you. I'm just getting the proofs back on this pretty soon, and then you'll get to see them. And I'm sure we'll have some other stuff coming out at the end of the year as well, as we always do. So while you're on my website, sign up for my newsletter. I promise not to spam you. It'll just let you know when we have new products or when I have a new webinar coming out. I have been toying with the idea of doing like a Mars retrograde webinar, because I have a lot to say about that. I do talk about it a little bit in my my election webinar as well, but I think that it might be worth doing a webinar on. So let me know. Is that something you guys would be interested in? You can catch me here on Friday. We're going to be doing live astrology readings. We're going to be doing readings as we get ready for that full moon in Aries. So check out the community tab. I always let you guys know when we're going to be going live, and you guys can sign up for that reading in advance. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there, and I will see you back here very soon. Take care.